From the deepest, darkest recesses of Dangerous Nerds headquarters, Keith Moncrief and Gary Kissel.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Pop Culture Minefield. We're here to talk about some nerd stuff. And over here to my right is Keith Moncrief, and down below me there is Miss Brittney. And then over in that far corner, counter corner to me, is some guy named Christopher Moonlight Cooksey.
Howdy.
And you can tell he's Moonlight because he's so darkly lit. Sexy.
And I said howdy because I'm coming at you from Texas.
Howdy, how y'all doing?
My kid said y'all the other day. Everyone stopped, like the record scratched. Like,
There's nothing funnier to me.
I think y'all here. I think that's more of our word.
No, it's in Texas. They say it in Texas. They say it in
y'all
Virginia.
is
All the southern states, and Missouri is partially a southern state. It's like I grew up in Virginia from the age 8 on, and I have zero accent. I'm accent neutral, but I say y'all, and it just sounds weird to me when I say it. And I had some lady one time, I was at the VFW helping my brothers serve at a function. My brother-in-law owned the restaurant and we were serving. I was exhausted, man. I've been doing army shit all day, and then that night I'm serving food. And this woman with her master sergeant husband, she looks up at me as I said, y'all want anything else? And when I get tired, my accent comes out. It comes out like this. I'll sound a little like this. I said, y'all want anything else? And she said, oh, where are you from? What a quaint accent. And I said, I'm from Virginia, ma'am. And she goes, say something else. I said, would y'all fucking like something else? Her husband
get really hot heated, then it'd be all y'all.
Her husband just thought that was the funniest thing ever. It's like, I'm 6'3". I'm like a Bigfoot. There's nothing quaint about me.
Wait, you're like Bigfoot? You're not real?
I've had long hair. I've had long hair. No, Bigfoot's real. Shut up, Chris. Shut up. I believe in Bigfoot. There you go. What size is that?
Wouldn't you like to know?
Yes, I'm asking. That's exactly why I asked.
You're like, don't
your
worry
audience
about it.
will find out at the end of the show. We got to give them a reason to hang in.
Stick around. Gotcha.
Stick around.
Stay
and find
tuned.
out.
Hey, we like having a guest
how
with
big
soul.
your foot is.
So one of the things we're going to be talking about today is, of course, your new short film, Quantum of Terror, right?
No. The Quantum Terror is a feature-length film.
Oh, it is?
I'm working on a short film for the Roger Corman Short Film Contest, and I'm in it to win it. This is a great.
Well, I've been watching your green screen special effect miniature stuff that you do all the time. You know, I watch that. You already knew that. Because you and I have been friends for, I think, about a year.
Has it only been a year?
It seems so longer. Because you're on my Facebook page a lot, which I always appreciate when you come on my page and make a comment.
Well, and I enjoy the show too. You know, it's really, I mean, when I come on to talk about stuff like this, there's two ways I see interviews go. Some people want to just like plug their stuff. Whenever I come on shows or just interact with people in general, it's like I always want to, we all love this stuff. We love miniatures, we love practical effects, we love science fiction, we love horror, creatures. It's like it's not about me, it's about the excitement. And when I create my stuff, it's about the excitement of bringing creatures to life. It's so much fun. It's why I like doing movies. As much as I'm a huge comic book fan, and I'd love to do comic books, but there's just a joy to
get ready for Keith to start asking you questions.
Materials and bringing them to life and making them move and become coalesce before an audience's eye and watch them be thrilled by that. That's like so when people, I try and retweet and repost people's stuff when it's like cool miniatures or special effects or performances. I love actors too. I really love the actors that deep dive into their profession and bring characters to life that way. you know. And I love music. Yeah, I get really excited when music evokes an emotion, or you know, that's what art is really supposed to be doing, is bringing to life things that mere words can't, but that you feel, you know, like you go to a great concert or something, or a play or a great movie, and something happens and you kind of feel it in your chest, like welling up, and you want that experience. That's not,
Yeah.
the people try and kind of rationalize that away. I love being swept away by art and the excitement and the emotion that it brings. Was there a question there? How did I go? See,
It was good.
No, it's
I just
ADD.
don't let you going.
Go
it
for
was
it. Man.
it's the big cup of coffee I drank right before I came on too.
Well, I had that experience even as an artist. I find that I was working on No Better Place to Die for Tom Hanks and Dale Dye. And there's a specific scene, because it's a true story of one of the battles that took place on D-Day. And in country, it took place within France, not on the shorelines. And it was one of the bloodiest fights for a bridge. And I had to illustrate a scene that I knew the story of. And when I started drawing the damn thing, I was crying while doing the artwork for it. And I was like telling my daughter to leave the room because I was getting emotional, and I don't like getting emotional in front of people. And so it does that. Music will do it to me all the time. Peter Gabriel, in particular, he just absolutely slams me emotionally.
Well, and it gets into your work too. If you work while listening to music, it's like you almost kind of work to the rhythm of the music. I remember doing a commission for somebody. It was I do a lot of kind of swampy mermaid stuff, and she wanted what she called a kraken mermaid, which is mermaid with tentacles instead of a tail.
Right. Yeah.
And I remember it was right when David Bowie's Black Star album came out, before he died. And I would wait till everyone was in bed, and I would start working on this piece. And I listened to that particular song multiple times while drinking wine and working on this piece. And it almost became like my mental state and what was going on the paper were like indivisible. And I still look at photographs of that piece, and I remember where I was at emotionally. And it's I feel like it's one of my favorite pieces, just not because of anything technically that I did that was brilliant in any way, but I see the emotion that came with the experience of creating it. So, these are things that are not quantifiable, but artists and people who appreciate art, I think, understand. It's why we go beyond just communicating with words. We want that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I wrote a chapter. Chuck Dixon read it, and he's like, "This is why I got into comics stories like this." It was one of the chapters from Vindicated, and it deals with a soldier going in, taking out some bad guys to rescue two small children that were being used by the sex trade,
Heavy stuff.
criminals,
Yeah.
and I wrote it specifically, and I got emotional when I wrote it. But what I found really interesting was all of my Army buddies that read it said, "Man, that hit like a sandbag, that moment when you wrote that in." Because every infantry guy feels that when they go into a town and they're trying to liberate or save somebody, and they're trying to protect children. And you nailed it in just 5 words. And it's like, thank you, because that's what
awesome.
I wanted to do.
Yeah, I remember when Chuck Dixon read a script that I wrote, and he said to me, "You may want to rethink that dialogue." That's my story.
He's never said that to me. Does that mean I'm a better writer than you?
It was just one line, and he was right. It's always great to get feedback on stuff. Yeah. It's funny because I don't want to get too dark, but my stories that I generally write, I'm very metaphorical. So if I want to tackle a heavy issue like that, I kind of do this roundabout thing because I love this YouTube videos where they analyze stuff, and they go, hey, I bet you didn't think of this, but when you're watching this scene, it actually means this. And you go, oh my God, how could I miss that? So I was trying to write stories like that, where if I want to address something like, children being victimized, I don't go straight for the jugular. I like do this roundabout storytelling thing where people go, oh, that could be a metaphor for this. Or they might interpret it a completely different way, because I love the idea that the audience completes the art. They become part of the experience. And it's not to say if you write about a topic specifically that you're not doing that, because there's all sorts of different ways to resonate with the audience. That, the most direct way is, giving them something that they can relate to. And then there's like the David Lynch indirect ways where they go, what the hell was that? But they keep coming back to it because they know there's something there. It's not just being weird for weird's sake. It's, which is, I'm hoping I accomplished with the Quantum Terror, because that is very much a movie where I could see people looking at it one way, looking at it literally, and or kind of interpreting it through, because you said you're a big fan of Carl Jung, which I am as well, using all the kind of Jung archetypes and dream symbolisms and what I've learned about myself through Jung to kind of create these images and then see what the audience makes of them. Because what might be one person's interpretation may not be another person's interpretation. And these days, as we all know, you go to see a Hollywood movie, and if somebody thinks they've got a message, they just pound you over the head with it. And my apologies, I'm not suggesting that that's what your story was doing.
We're very anti SJW here. But no, I get what you're saying, and no, the problem we have with writers today, so many of them, is they don't know how to tell a story, and they have no concept of how to use themes properly, much less how to use plot if it's necessary. Because you can have a story without a plot, but you can't have a plot without a story, and they tend to overuse plot. J.J. Abrams. Just absolutely garbage writer. He only knows how to write plot and plot twists. And it gets really tiresome because I want more character-driven stories. I know most people do.
You can set your watch by most J.J. Abrams movies these days. I mean, he's done movies that I've enjoyed, don't get me wrong, but it's like, once you realize how to me, if he hits on something good, he's not the writer. But a lot of times you'll see stuff and you'll go like, he did that in all of his other movies. Like, and you can almost go, okay, like here's the moment where he's going to do the everything slows down and sad dramatic music drowns out any other audio. Or, it's like,
right.
Like, I was working in a movie theater when the latest Star Wars movie came out, and it was actually like to the point we do the theater checks while the movie's playing, and I'd actually tell people, you go check the Star Wars theaters, I'll go check another theater, because I can't bear to watch another frame of that movie. But I mean, JJ's found some things that work for him. And I won't say which J.J. Abrams movies I like, because I don't want to set anyone off. But I definitely, for me, like stories that are, there's multiple things happening, and it's all connected. I think but what a lot of people don't realize is that good storytelling is to create a network of connections within your story, that you understand how everything relates to everything else. And these days you get a lot of writers who just think, oh, you just come in and write whatever cool stuff you think you're going to, you're going to want to see in a film, which is what I see J.J. Abrams doing. It's like, oh, I loved it when when Spielberg did this in one of his movies. I can do that too. And he knows how to recreate the shot, but he doesn't know why the shot originally existed. So, I try to, thanks, Keith. I try and tell stories that, have those connections. Uh-oh, we lose someone?
Brittney's screen froze.
Oh, no. Well, hopefully she comes back.
She has internet connectivity issues sometimes. Living there in Nixa.
Yeah.
She's gone. She's gone. She'll be back. She'll pop back in.
So anyway, but yeah, it was the Quantum Terror, and I don't know if you want to get. She's back.
Sorry, my internet's going in and out.
I told her
all day long.
Yeah, she's got that country bumpkin internet down there in Nixa.
Yeah, and they don't know. They don't know what's wrong. Of course.
And for the audience, if I keep looking this way, it's because my camera's here and my screen's over here, so
I actually have a second screen over here too, and I look over there for stuff. Because you guys are on my drawing tablet, what I actually do my art on, and then I have my second monitor over here where I watch movies or leave my screen up for people wanting to talk to me.
Drawing mustaches on people's faces.
In person.
Like live.
Maybe I would look better with a mustache. We don't know.
You're cute and adorable just as you are. Leave that be. Stop messing with it.
Mustache.
But
yeah, this is I don't know. Like I feel like we started the show kind of like without any context. So I hope people.
That's life. There should be no context with life.
That's what school is for.
Are you
That's exactly what school is?
Are you a huge horror fan? I know you're doing the Roger Corman. You said that you're really excited about doing the short competition.
Well, it's funny because yes, I am a huge horror fan, but I'm also very finicky about horror. I'm a bigger science fiction fan, just because science fiction, like for me, science fiction can be so many things. It can be very kind of. You can be utilitarian, you can be kind of futurist science fiction, or you can just be like bonkers.
Yeah, there's tons of subgenres within it.
Yeah, it's like I love Star Wars, I love Star Trek, I love Pacific Rim, I love Green Slime.
Oh my God, we have all talked about it because you're mutual friends with Graham Nolan, and when we do a post on that, the comments on that is always like really long. We all go into that movie. It's one of my favorite films from the 60s.
Oh,
Richard
yeah.
Jekyll.
Forbidden Planet 2, Robinson Crusoe on Mars is one that I really love. So you could just go like just bonkers with science fiction. With horror, you can do that too, but it's a lot easier to miss the mark with horror.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not actually a big slasher fan. I like, I love the Roger Corman.
Slashers are my favorite.
I love, like Alien crosses into horror and science fiction. Alien and Aliens are like my favorite movies.
Yep.
I love like the Roger Corman, these in the 60s, the Poe films, like with Boris Karloff and Vincent Price and Jack Nicholson. Huge Vincent Price fan. I love, for me, I loved Clyde Barker, some Stephen King. Stephen King's hit or miss for me.
I think he's hit or miss too. Everyone says he's the best, but I think he's got really big things, and then he has some stuff where I'm just like, what is this? How is this the same guy? Like, it's impossible.
Well, I want to point out something about you brought up a name that I've not talked about yet on any interview is Clive Barker. And you're the first person that out and out said they were a fan. And
I met him a few times too. So, it's wonderful.
He is,
guy.
in my opinion, the only real modern horror author. Don't get me wrong, because I love Dean Koontz and I enjoy Stephen King, but Stephen King is a writer and Dean Koontz is an author, but Clive Barker is a horror author poet, in my opinion.
Well,
a true artist of writing horror.
I'll admit I've never been able to get into Dean Koontz. Stephen King is one of those writers. He can write very readable stuff. Like it's just easy to read. Like you can just even when you're scrambling on.
The rule with Stephen King with me when I write a review is close the book before the last chapter, make up your own ending, you'll be happy.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think the reason that Stephen King has been so successful is he had great whoever is managing him just did a great job of getting him getting his movies, his properties licensed as movies. And I think really what happened there was he just got great filmmakers to interpret his stories. And
because he goes through cycles with his popularity.
His cycles of the werewolf. And sorry, couldn't help it. And then, you remember in the 80s, there was like the Stephen King book club that you'd see commercials for, send in this thing and we'll just keep sending you his books, So he does good stuff. There are some stories like Brittney said, I don't understand why people love The Stand. To me, and he loves The Stand. His book on writing, he talks about how he wrote himself into a corner.
Not a fan.
Then, he said, I wrote myself into a corner, and then I had this brilliant idea to just kill off a bunch of loose ends. I'm like, that's terrible. That's a terrible idea. Where Clive Barker, Clive Barker is somebody, again, going back to Jung, who is... he's aware of and knows how. He
also uses exactly. He uses archetypes.
Yeah, and he's aware of his shadow. He understands and is not afraid to dive into. Yeah,
his books are definitely Jungian and not Freudian. A lot of symbolism, and there's a brilliance in it because, like, my first experience with them, I don't know if it was yours, was the Books of Blood when they first came out in paperback. Back in the 80s, and I picked that up, and I'm like, I read it the first time, and I couldn't get to sleep. I had to finish the book in that one night, and I couldn't get to sleep after reading it because that was like it did. I'm not scared by shit, but I was disturbed by his writing, and I'm like, I like that because he reminded me of someone I'm sure that you love as well as H.P. Lovecraft, and he reminds me of that.
Lovecraft and Clive Barker have that kind of other worlds beyond our perception aspect to him, and Clive Barker especially with books like The Great Secret Show, and I love.
And Weave World was amazing.
I love Harry D'Amour, and I actually really love the Lord of Illusions movie. I love the Last Illusion.
The director's cut is my favorite. I own it. I love that movie.
I've got that on VHS.
See, I knew there was a reason you and I became friends. I knew it.
And I actually read the script for Lord of Illusions, and I think that script above all else was my master class in screenwriting. It's a brilliant script. Some people claim that he had help with it. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but it was just it's a wonderful script. I thought Scott Bakula did a great job as Harry D'Amour. I feel like it's an underrated movie. One of the effects artists that's my favorite that I got to interview, Steve Johnson, did a bunch of effects for it.
The special effects makeup in particular,
really
good.
And was it Bill Bryan who worked for Clive Barker? Bill Bryan came up with, if you go to Stan Winston School of Character Arts, what's called plastic bag monsters. And they started using that for everything. It's something that I use in my own effects, which is essentially you just get polymer materials that you can stretch out, and you can seam it with a soldering iron and make all sorts of these balloon shapes. But for Lord of Illusions, when Swan starts, like, all that stuff starts coming out of his eyes and his skin, that's all that plastic bag technology. They're just inflating it with air or liquid. And it just comes out of air. And they used it in Species for the embryos and the cocoons and the creatures kind of like coming out when they did the pure DNA version where they had to burn the lab. That was all like plastic bag technology. So, and Clive Barker came to Steve Johnson and said, like, I love everything you do. And then he said, but I don't want to see a mask stuck on someone. I want to see something organic. And so they brought that plastic bag technology to it. And it's just, it's one of those movies really underappreciated, but I just love the synergy between story, visuals, Clive Barker's particular sensibility. It's a very Hollywood movie as well. And when I say Hollywood, it's just like Clive Barker living in Hollywood and loving Hollywood and wanting to do something that is an homage to, Hollywood detectives and that sort of thing. It's just I can't recommend the movie highly enough.
Yeah,
It's also
I feel the
very
same way.
disturbing and dark.
It has a happy ending, but you go
Sort
through a
of.
lot of stuff.
Sort of.
Hey, I want to
Clive
ask
Barker
you.
has an odd idea about happy endings, especially if what is it what's the one that I always feel like Neil Gaiman rewrote into American Gods? I'm trying to remember. It's like the same plot as American Gods. It's like a guy gets out of jail and gets hired by a rich eccentric, but Clive Barker's gets.
That's Angel Heart. No, not Angel Heart.
No, not Angel Heart. No, another very dark film. What is it called? Anyway, I don't want to spend a bunch of time on the show trying to remember. It'll pop into my head.
Hey, do you have an official page?
I have social media. I have a site I'm developing. It's not ready yet. It's called digitalpracticalfx.com.
Where would you like me to put a link or to show people a page to go find you?
Oh, well, I always recommend my YouTube channel. That's really where it's at. Or you can follow me on Instagram at Christopher Moonlight. That's where I post kind of daily. I always try and find.
I don't know if we follow each other on there. I'll go look it up.
Yeah,
what's it called on? What am I looking for?
Christopher Moonlight. That's I'm always posting stuff on there. I post my progress. I'll do little things where I'll go, hey, this is what I'm working on today, or I'll post artwork, or sometimes just things that I think are really cool. I've had a lot of fun experiences. I'm really lucky. I got to work for Studio ADI, otherwise known as the Special Effects Company Amalgamated Dynamics Incorporated. I was their director of social media for a while, so I didn't actually I did some video editing for them, but I mainly did things like, when they did their Kickstarter, when they're launching product and stuff. But I took a lot of pictures in their showrooms, like the worms from Tremors, Aliens versus Predator stuff.
I love Tremors so much.
Oh, Tremors is the best. Tremors is just the best, and that's
so much.
And that movie is like Kevin Bacon at the time was like, what am I doing? Like, my career's going down the tubes. I'm doing a worm movie. And ADI,
it's so underrated.
And then ADI, Alec told me that it's like they just left working for Stan Winston, and they're like digging holes in the desert to put the worms in. He's like sweat, dirt all over, and he's going like, this is what I left Stan Winston for? Everybody during that movie was like, what is going on? But it came together so beautifully, and it's got such fantastic special effects.
It's got a good story.
Storytelling.
All of it is just solid, all the way through.
Oh no, a van drove by.
Yeah, Amazon Prime delivery. But the my wife, who a lot of times I'll be like, hey, I want to watch the science fiction movie or something. It's like, maybe, but she loved Tremors.
It's so good.
It's so much fun.
It is. It's a fun movie.
Once again, it's a character-driven film.
You broke into the wrong goddamn rec room.
Yeah. Golly. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Like, every decision they made, whether it was bad or not, I was like, yep, that's what I would do. They're like, get to the roof. I'm like, yep, that's what I would do. And they're like, let's get the Bobcat. And I'm like, yep, smart decision. And then they get straight on a bunch of rocks. I'm like, I would have died. If this was real life, I would have made all of these decisions and I would have been dead. Like,
what I really like about that movie? They didn't make it a lone survivor movie. Like, most of the group actually made it. Like, you're like, and it kind of, I mean, people did die, but it kind of made the movie just really fun and exciting, not grim. Like, Alien, which is one of my favorite movies, but it's a lone survivor movie. People say it's a Lovecraftian movie, and in a way it is like that, horror beyond the stars. But at the same time, I also consider it kind of the same way as we consider Jaws. It's like a man versus nature film. Yeah,
if he was still alive, if I were to look for anybody to design anything from an H.P. Lovecraft story, it would have been Geiger.
Oh,
but
yeah.
We lost him. So, and that's what made it H.P. Lovecraftian to me for Alien.
Oh yeah, no, he's fantastic. I've Giger artwork. Well, you can't see. Let's see if I can. Let's see. Get a picture back a little bit enough. There's like my shelf there.
Oh,
I've
nice.
got several Giger stuff. This is called kind of my wall of either inspiration or accomplishments.
Wow.
You know, so I've got. Let's see if I can. So that. Nope. Point that way. So that is Worlds. That's from Alec Gillis from ADI as well. That's a really fun book. Alec gave me that copy.
Hold on, I'm going to make you main screen.
Okay.
Boom.
I'll figure out how to point. So there is, that's a poster I did for Ray Bradbury when I was working for him. That's a poster of Mr. Electrico, Carnival poster. And
Cool.
that's World. There's Fire City, which is Tom Woodruff from ADI. He directed that. I helped out with the campaign on that. Harbinger Down. I made this book, The Making of Harbinger Down, which was I helped Alec with the campaign. And then, of course, we've got Giger. There's Ashley Wood, Dave McKean. Over here is posters signed by the cast and crew of Harbinger Down. My friend Clint.
A very underrated film.
Yeah, I really love it. So
I
you
do
can see
too.
there's a lot of stuff back here. There's, like the robot puppets that will be, not these ones, but robot puppets like it will be in upcoming stuff, science fiction stuff. I, obviously do a lot of miniatures. So let me get focus back on me there. All right, that's better. There's more stuff that I could talk about that way, but Giger, yes, is everywhere in my office. He's huge. He's like the first artist.
Did you ever get to meet him?
I did not get to meet Giger. No.
My buddy Matt McGuire and I share an experience at two different times in our lives. Got to go meet him, and I got to ride on his little train.
You never get to do something like that.
The sweetest guy. I pictured something so much darker, and for what he creates, I figured this guy would be so horrific as a human being. And he's like, he was a really sweet guy.
That's, it's like when I met Clive Barker for the first time, it was at his art show at La Luz de Jesus in Los Angeles. It was like this kind of weird toy store with a gallery in the back that was doing his show. And he signed a poster for me, which for the life of me, I don't know what happened to it. I'm devastated because, but when I met him, I walked up, like, Mr. Barker, I really love your work, and he shook my hand and he grabbed both hands. It's like, oh, it's really nice. Thank you so much for coming out. And it's like, what do you think of the work? And I was like, which one do you have a favorite? And I was like, oh, I really like this one. Oh, yeah. And he started to talk about the painting. And then other people were coming up to him and meeting him and that sort of thing. And he was like, some people came along, and they were buyers, and whoever was repping the show was like, Clive, can you kind of take these people around and explain each of the paintings? He's like, oh yeah, sure. And I was like, you mind if I just kind of tag along and listen? He's like, yeah, come along, and just super nice.
That's awesome.
And then the second time I met him was at the UCLA Book Fair. I doubt you remember me for the first time, but at that point I was teaching art to kids, and I came up and I asked him a question, and I mentioned that I taught art to kids. I can't remember what the question was, but when he heard I was an art teacher, he engaged me in a conversation for I don't know how long it was. It felt like 10 minutes. But it was to the point where I was feeling a little awkward. Like, are people getting mad at me that I won't stop talking directly to Clive? They want to ask their questions too. But that's just the kind of person that he is just this really enthusiastic, sweet guy that had no pretense at all. Like I said, that excitement that I talk about, it was there in him, and it just made it like a very pleasant experience. And I think H.R. Giger, Clive Barker, who else have I met? I've met a lot of people where it's been a very pleasant experience, different comic book artists, both Dave Gibbons and John Higgins. John Higgins being the colorist for the Watchmen. Very sweet that way as well. That come to mind. Ray Bradbury.
I would have loved to have met him.
I got to meet him more times than I can count, to the point where he didn't know my name, but he would recognize me when I'd show up to things. So I remember,
guy.
Yeah, but I knew his daughter Sue was a friend of my family's, and it's funny because she was a friend of our family's before we realized she was Ray Bradbury's daughter. Like, it just came up. Like, I think my grandfather asked her, like, what does your dad do? And she's like, oh, he's a writer. And but we Ray Bradbury was so pleasant to talk to, and I remember one time I gave him, he's a big cat fan, so I did a Martian cat painting. I did it with all this gold leaf and snake scales and that sort of thing, and I gave it to him. He grabbed it and he kissed it and he held it. He's like, I love it. I absolutely love this. He's like, I'm gonna hang this in my office. And I was just like, when it's just, again, one of these weird things. It's like, I was my wife and I had our first child. I can't remember exactly, but I went to visit my dad, and he said, oh, I was drinking with this guy at a bar, and he's invited me around. He's working with Ray Bradbury, and he's looking for help. And so I showed him my special effects work, and I connected with him. So there's this other producer working with Ray Bradbury to do this documentary about his life. And it wasn't just supposed to be about his life. It's supposed to be like from inside Ray's imagination, which is really the driving force in his life. So I got to do, like I said, like the poster, Mr. Electrico. I hired my friend Dave Grave, who's the front man to a band called Frankenstein, to create the Dark Ferris, which later on became... Dark Ferris was originally what it was before it became the merry-go-round and Something Wicked This Way Comes. So we did that, and we did all sorts of, like, we did like Martians, we did Mars, we did all of this stuff. And unfortunately, Ray died in the middle of production of that. But so that it did get finished, but it never got released. And from what I saw, it wasn't ready to be released. But I mean, that was sad. But it was like this really great time where Ray was involved. Like, Ray was sending back notes to our work. Our work was being taken to his house, so we get photographs of Ray holding pieces of our work, like a puppet I had made. And so when Ray died, it was like this great sense of sadness came over everybody that was working on it, because we were really kind of steeped in the energy of Bradbury and his work, and we were all lifelong fans. So that was really a prime example of what we're talking about. People with these very kind of wild and dark imaginations are really coming at it from a place of love. Horror to me is not about just watching people die. It's also kind of, for the audience, when you talk about the lone survivor or even a group of people surviving, I think that harkens back to us as primitive people, like back when we were just, tribes gathering around campfires, and there would be pitch black around us, but there would be the storyteller that would, this would tell, they'd hear a sound and they go, what is that sound? And the storyteller would spin a tale, and the tale would be about going out into that darkness and finding horrors, but also finding rewards. So it's like the classic, idea of, you could go out and fight the dragon and the dragon could eat you, but if you defeat the dragon, there's treasure to be gained, and that treasure could be anything. It could be knowledge, which I think is kind of what movies like Alien and even Lovecraft stories. In Lovecraft stories, the knowledge, the reward of knowledge, is the horror. Like, you're sorry you asked. But in Aliens, the sequel, you go back out into the darkness and confront that thing, and the reward for Ripley was a daughter. not just a daughter, but somebody who understood her situation, what she went through, where other people around her don't. So, going to the movies, going to see horror is kind of like gathering around that campfire and hearing the story of the people that went out into the dark and got eaten, but somebody came back, which gives the audience hope. It's kind of
and that's the word. That's the operative word, is hope.
Yeah, it's a
a horror
survivalist
film
fantasy.
is only as good as the hope that you can give the audience that the characters they're watching, someone might survive.
Yeah, and that's what I really. I did a whole series on why I feel like Alien 3 really failed the franchise, and that's because it was all about stepping on the hope that was created in Aliens, and the hope in Aliens was a logical progression from Aliens. So, that's my take on it anyway.
Yeah, because I have a lot of problems with the new prequel films. I'm not a fan of prequels to begin with, because especially if it deals with horror. I just like all of the Chainsaw prequels, Texas Chainsaw prequels, because it's like, who's not going to die.
And, well, not only that, but especially with the prequels for like Prometheus and Alien Covenant, I think on their own, if they weren't Alien movies, they probably would have been better. But the problem is that
they'd be fine.
There's this whole thing now about subverting expectation, which is really kind of, to me, a lazy way of thinking.
Yeah, it's a lazy way of also describing irony. And irony is the only real way to subvert expectations. And it works a very specific way. And if you don't use it correctly, you look like a fucking idiot.
And
Ryan Johnson. Oh, did I say that out loud? I didn't mean to say that out loud. I'm sorry.
Where there's also a kind of arrogance with a lot of, speaking of Ryan Johnson, and I'll call that out. I think it was arrogant what he did. This idea that you think you're smarter than the material you've been hired to continue on with, and you're going to not just subvert expectation, but you're going to kind of like laugh in the face, like, oh, wasn't Star Wars quaint? We're much smarter than that now. Let's do something really highbrow, and it's just like, it's garbage. It's laziness, and I think it comes from an inability to, hey, you gonna play with squeaky toys? Anyway, I don't want to get negative about things, because like I'm gonna kind of shift the subject here a little bit, which is, we're doing the quarantine or lockdown or whatever you're calling it at the moment, and there's been a whole shift in the paradigm of the economy, which is, to me, devastated Hollywood. Hollywood has lost billions of dollars in the matter of weeks, and it's been compounded by the fact that theaters have also been mortally wounded, and then compounded on top of that by the fact that people,
I think, fatally wounded on some of them.
Well, I think that my dog is trying to snap a seahorse's stuffed neck. There's stuffing everywhere. It's horrible. People, the thing that the final kind of nail in the coffin, and I'm not saying that it's not over for Hollywood, but things are definitely changing, and Hollywood is going to have to contend with the fact that the video on demand audience just got a lot bigger suddenly, and people are not going to undiscover that. And so independent filmmakers who are already set up to operate in that place that originally they were just kind of shoved aside, like, okay, you go play in video on demand. We're Hollywood. We got the movie theaters, Suddenly, Hollywood's trying to figure out how to muscle in on that. Suddenly, they're trying to figure out how to make it work. Where people like me have been making it work for ages, been figuring it out, figuring out the business plan, how to shoot on budgets and make it look good, how to capture a new audience. These are all things that Hollywood kind of took for granted, and now I'm not saying that they won't adapt, but
it's adapt or die at this point.
yeah, but a lot of the independent creators have an edge, and I think that the video on demand market is just bursting with potential
because Keith and I have been talking about this for over a year, and we have talked exclusively at times about how Hollywood doesn't understand what's going on, and that Netflix, Hulu,
Amazon
in particular, Netflix and Amazon, and now Disney, even though they're in trouble, they were taking over the streaming landscape, and they were changing film forever by doing it. But with this virus, I think it sped up the process, and I think we're going to see at the end of this a distinct change in how people see movies.
It's like watching that thing. What do they call that chemical reaction? Elephant snot, where they dump the thing in and it just goes poof with all this foam everywhere.
Yeah,
that's what happened.
Is it called elephant snot? Is it called that?
Well, they tried so hard to say.
What was that?
Oh my God.
Oh,
Brittney?
No,
well, they try so hard too, saying that like streaming people, like Netflix, like if you did an original Netflix movie, they're like, you can't be nominated for anything. And I think it's
got to change. It's got to change
too.
Well,
with everything.
If Netflix ends up buying like one of the major theater chains, then yeah, it'll change. All right, Netflix will just figure out a way to get nominated the next time around by showing their films in theaters.
Exactly. So Brittany's talking about something important there, because I got to be honest with you. Fuck the Oscars. Outside
I don't care. My award is like the only award I care about are fans. Like if I have fans, if I have an audience that likes what I'm doing and wants more, that's all I need. I mean, awards are nice. It's very flattering. Just like, hey, we really
awards are nothing more than a means for some of these people to try to increase their pay rate. That's what they're for.
It's, to me, it's not, it's like I'm not saying I'll never do film festivals, but I don't really have a desire to do the film festival circuit. I think it's all there, right there for the audience on video on demand. And we're not seeing the landscape of video on demand is going to be changing too. Like we have, like Netflix is doing very well, but they're kind of limited in what I find myself going to Amazon more and more, because Netflix only has a limited amount of stuff, and they've been throwing a ton of money at.
Well, yeah, they bought a film studio because Keith and I talked about this too. Is that they were releasing films and TV shows, but they didn't really make them, and that was where they were failing. And now they're doing it, and they had to sink a lot of money into it. So they're like, what are they, almost at $1 trillion in debt right now?
Yeah.
Which one?
Netflix.
Well, but that's the thing. This is what I've been trying to say on the show. A year ago, I was saying that they were in trouble, but that was before I found out how many viewers that they had worldwide. Because at the time, a year ago, I didn't realize how many viewers they had and how big they were compared to everyone else. And everyone else, there is nobody that comes close to the number of viewers that Netflix has worldwide, which is 150 million.
Yeah, they have the largest global.
They have the largest one. And that also explains the reason why all of the stuff they offer is so varied. You have films from India. You have films from, like Scotland and Nova Scotia and other places. They are the worldwide distribution leader. That doesn't mean that nobody else can do it. That just means that they had a little bit of a head start, which is part of the reason why you have certain others that are trying to hook up with them. But Netflix has an advantage. And when you look at what's going on with Disney overextended themselves for the amount of money that they had in making the deal to buy 20th Century Fox, which part of that reason why they overextended was because of NBC, and now that's come back to bite Disney in the butt.
I don't know.
Meanwhile, NBC is getting ready to launch their own service, and they're having a high time. They are having a fun time right now. But this is a war. This is a war between every one of them, and it's only going to get more intense before it gets better.
What were you going
And-
to say? What were you going to say?
Oh, I didn't mean to.
Well, who? Which, me?
Yeah, you.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
no,
you.
I was just going to say that I don't know if Disney Plus is going to be around forever. I think that probably the shows that they're creating, like The Mandalorian, will have a good run, and then it'll probably end up on Blu-ray and other services. I don't know how viable Disney Plus is going to be over long term unless they're willing to do what the other people do, which is have content that, like when you're photoshopping hair over Daryl Hannah's butt in Splash, you know.
Yeah.
That was so goofy.
You're telling
It doesn't even look good.
Yeah, you're telling audiences that you're only going to do family friendly content, which is, that's fine, but you are limiting. You're telling them they're going to be limited on what they can find on the platform, and how many times, like, my girls watch Disney animated movies on Disney Plus all the time, but we also have them on DVD if we have to cancel. And they're going to grow to a certain age where they're not going to want to watch them as much anymore. And there are also apps that are independent apps. That have other means of staying in business. They have lesser known stuff, but you can go and get the Troma films or the Full Moon films or stuff like that.
Well, let me ask: do you think, in being an independent filmmaker and someone that has not had the experience of working with massive budgets, do you think that puts you more at an advantage? Because I'm assuming that in the future, studios are going to have to deal with smaller budgets, which is the reason why a lot of these films that should have come out this year, why a certain number of them will not be going to streaming. Okay, like the latest James Bond film, Black Widow, Wonder Woman, those films will not be coming to streaming because they spent so much money. There is almost no way mathematically for them to make the kind of budgets necessary to justify the existence of the film, which negates them from ever really going on to streaming. Because you can't. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. No, I was listening to what you said. I didn't realize you're done. Sorry about that. But
yeah.
I had this conversation with several people. I actually got an email back because I email every once in a while your boy Zach on Comics Matter, and every once in a while I get a reply back. He said he was talking to some people that are in the film industry. He said that the $50,000 movies are now the new $5 million movies, and the new $5 million movies are the new $100 million movies. You're not going to see for a long time any $300 million budget movies because they've lost so much money. And yeah, like you said, mathematically, you can't put a movie like Wonder Woman just on streaming, but you can put an independent film on streaming. And I don't expect to become a millionaire. I hope I become a millionaire making films, but I would turn that around and put it into building a studio here in Texas. Mainly, I just want to make films and I want to make a decent living. I want to be able to provide for my family. And I'm very used to working on almost no budget. As a matter of fact, there's a couple of projects at the moment that I'm working on that are designed to be shot for pretty much no money. And I think that Hollywood sees that writing on the wall too. I believe that this Roger Corman contest that I'm interested in entering and that I want to win.
When's the deadline for entering on that?
The 30th is the deadline.
This month.
Yeah, the 30th of this month. And the rules were you shoot it in or around your house with whoever you're there with. Don't put together a cast. Don't leave the house. And you have to shoot on a cell phone. And then he went and he challenged people like Eli Roth and Guillermo del Toro to enter it. I
awesome.
think there's a reason why he did that. And I don't think Roger Corman's still producing movies at 94 years old. But he's also in with these other producers.
He's very intelligent.
Yes, he is. And I think that this is this is a kind of, I believe this is a not just a talent hunt, but just a hunt to see how people with no budgets do it, because it is being done. Whether it's practical effects, people are using programs like Blender very expertly and creating amazing stuff for next to no money. Like in their homes in the woods. Yeah, there's the contest. So I believe this is Hollywood trying to fish for how do we do this? How do we, who knows how to do this? And they want to know. And the short film that me and a producer I work with named Doug Mayfield came up with. It's a very simple story. It's shot at home. It's a mad scientist who has to work from home, and he's essentially doing experiments in the kitchen with the dogs, and the dogs are a problem. And I got to do my let's see if I can do this. So I'm going to do kind of like what Sherlock Holmes used to do. I'm going to stuff my cheeks, and I'm just letting my stubble grow out a bit, letting my hair get a little bit wild, and I'm going to make it kind of slick back. I'm going to see if I can just... I'm here to be an old elderly mad scientist yelling at his dog, Roger, put that down. And Roger, why do you vex me? He came. He knows I'm talking to him. So I'm gonna be, it's just great.
Yeah, the dog doesn't know real from acting.
Yeah, he thinks but if you kind of hunch in and get the right angle on the camera, my experiment is working. Yes, my experiment's working. So I'm gonna do a little bit of old age makeup, make myself scruffy, and hunch myself up and do that voice. Aw, yes, you're gonna play Roger. Come here, Roger.
We have our dogs on now.
Aw.
This is the micro wolf.
Yeah, Harley's asleep. So.
But and I'm
Harley's usually right behind me, but
I'm gonna use some very simple techniques to make this film. I've been working on the practical effects stuff in the garage for the last couple of days. The materials are foam core and springs for I have stuff on my YouTube channel on how to make stuff like this. Foam core and springs for tentacle mechanisms. Also rod puppets, which I can do very simple rod removal. I have my cell phone, but I've got little cell phone lenses that you just clip on so you can do things like macro. I'm going to use very simple, for chemical reactions.
Is it this one?
Yeah, just like that. Alka-Seltzer and vinegar for bubbling, sizzling chemicals and all real simple stuff. But if you edit it together very effectively, you do get that boku though, which is pretty harsh. But those. You shoot in 4K on your phone, you can crop in for HD and get rid of that boku as well. So I'll probably do a video on my YouTube channel about how I made the short film once it's out. But there's several tentacles. I'm also using, again, that plastic bag monster technology that they used in Lord of Illusions and Species.
We should actually do an episode where you're in your studio doing something and you show us how you're doing it.
Yeah, I would love to do something like that.
Would that be cool, Keith? Brittney, are you actually okay? You were sitting still for so long. I thought you were frozen again. And she's frozen again.
No, she's just sitting really still. But yeah,
I'm just listening to him. Well, I mean, our budgets. I mean, it's zero or nothing.
Yeah, you got to. I just built a green screen.
We don't have a lot of budget.
Yeah, I just built a green screen in my studio, so I
saw
green screen stuff.
I saw that what you did. That was really cool.
And this is what you got to do. I can do science fiction. I can do whole alien worlds in my garage just with a green screen and some miniatures. Or now I'm learning photo scanning, so I can take my practical effects miniatures, puppets, and I can photo scan them and turn them into 3D, which is not something that I'll do all the time. But it's, I still like practical effects, but I still think that 3D technology does have its place. So CGI does have its place as well. I'm into blending them together. Did I lose you guys?
No.
Oh, okay. I just see all me. I don't see you guys. So I was like, I'm just talking to myself. But the Quantum Terror, that movie. I don't know if you guys want to show the trailer for it, and then we can talk a bit about that.
Yeah,
you have that set up? Because I made the Quantum Terror in and around my house too. It could technically be a quarantine film, if not for the actors.
Yeah, we could do a what do they call that? Like Mystery Science Theater 3000 somehow, and I don't know how to do it, but I could probably better do it through OBS than through this service.
Oh, okay.
But
we don't have to show the trailer.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
I'm thinking about things here. I'm thinking that we could do a dual thing using both OBS and StreamYard and broadcast the movie that way and use OBS to reduce us down. I have to check and see. I got to test it to see how it works. But I would love to, because we can at least be talking during the film, but I don't like doing that.
No, I'm just talking about showing the trailer right now.
I can show the trailer right now.
Yeah, show the trailer, and then I'll talk about how I made that film and what the basis behind that is, because it's a fun story, and I'm very proud of what the cast and crew did under my direction, how trusting they were. But yeah, let's.
I need to. I'm going to go ahead and pull the video up through YouTube. YouTube, where are you? There you are. Thank you, YouTube. And
where are you?
Our last episode, and here I'm going to go ahead and pull the screen up. Our last episode was with Dave Dorman.
Oh,
and I've known him and Denise for a while. They're just good people, and it was fun to get him out of his cave and come on the show. But and then of course Keith and I did one about who will survive the comic apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I pay attention. I haven't been in comic books for a long time, but I pay attention to what's going on because I think the business, the people who are doing good business in comics right now are, there it is. Okay, let's watch this.
Sorry, what'd you say? We haven't lost our minds. Not yet.
I love the color.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And here's one of our practical effects creatures. It's a little worse for wear now.
Nice. I love practical effects. I think they make everything better.
This is yeah, very simple stuff. I'm glad you like the color because I did want to make something. You know, I was making this while all these desaturated films were coming out. You know.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to make something that was colorful and interesting that way. But the practical effects were done on the cheap. This is done with this guy was done with some latex packing tape, foam core, Sculpey, and he's just essentially a pull toy. And we did some other things to bring him to life.
That's awesome.
Versions. So yeah, so the movie was originally I moved to a rental house with my family in Texas. And right across the road from us was this wash tunnel that went underneath the road. And it just came out the other side, but it reminded me of when I was a teenager and I'd seen Alien 3, and I wanted to make an Alien fan film. This is before fan films were really a thing. The internet, there was no YouTube or anything like that yet. And I tried building miniatures for that and building puppets for that. And I had a friend with a VHS video camera that was going to let me use it, but it never happened. So it kind of flashed me back to that. I said, I'd really love to do a movie that's kind of creatures and I love the idea of underground tunnels. I can just have the actors pretend they're going down into these things. And then I got foam sheets and painted them up to look like concrete, set them up in my garage so it looked like they were in tunnels. We did a lot of miniatures. Heather Lowe, a friend of mine, she built the miniature versions of the tunnels. And Jenna Green, who is on Face Off, if you guys know that show that was on Sci-Fi Channel, the makeup competition.
Oh yeah,
yeah, love that show.
She was in season 4, and she did the makeup, and she helped me like paint the puppets and create puppet effects. And the idea is essentially just this kind of like a Jungian kind of tale of perception. Like the idea is the basic plot is there's a girl. Her name is Samantha, and her twin sister has disappeared down these tunnels. She meets up with her sister's ex-boyfriend, who's weird, and people say he's abusive, and he's also a suspect in her disappearance. But he's telling her, no, she's down in these tunnels, and we gotta go down there and look for her. Anyway, this girl, some other people from her past show up to help her out because they're worried about her, and they all go down in these tunnels. And of course, once they're down inside these tunnels, reality starts to alter, and they come in contact with these Lovecraftian creatures. They think they're home at one point, but they're actually in a kind of like a different dimension that looks like their home, but it's actually inhabited by creatures. And it's mainly just shot in and around my house, in my garage, a few shots on the outside where that external tunnel is. And we made this whole movie happen for very little money. It's taken a long time. We're in year 5 of production. It took a year to kind of pre-produce, do kind of pre-production, and then it took a year to shoot. And then because of life happening and me having to take on other jobs, work on other movies, that sort of thing, it slowed things down. But we're working on the audio right now, and I've had people inquire about if the movie's done, because the VOD thing right now, with everyone being stuck at home, they're like buying up finished films like crazy. But it's not done yet. We're just doing the audio, and I'm going to tweak a few more visual effects because I've seen things that could be a little bit better or a little more interesting. But the movie itself is very much about perception, how people perceive themselves and how they perceive other people. And so you watch the movie kind of from there's no actual narrator, but what they call the unreliable narrator point of view. Are these people really the way that they see each other, or is that just how they're perceiving each other? So there's they meet different versions of themselves. They they meet one time and then another time they meet again and they don't remember meeting each other. Like all this weird stuff happens, but I did put in a narrative that you can string together and make sense, but it's got that David Lynch thing going on where you.
Yeah, I wanted to point out that was very David Lynchian.
Oh, David Lynch is a huge influence on me. And I think this movie itself, in a way, it's my first feature film. I've worked on a lot of other movies, but it's my first feature film as a writer and a director. And I wanted to create something that had two purposes. One, it could be one of those movies that people could analyze and try and figure out what it means to them. And the other thing is, it really is kind of like, since it's my first movie, it's like me being a little kid trying on dad's boots, and trying to walk around in them. I tried all the things that I saw other directors do, people like Sam Raimi, Ridley Scott, David Lynch especially. David Lynch probably first and foremost. David Cronenberg, James Cameron. James Cameron mainly with the miniature and the creature stuff. James Cameron's just a master, before his CGI became dominant in his life, he's just a master of cutting things together so they look like one complete thing.
Well, David Lynch even had impacts on great directors like Stanley Kubrick.
Kubrick came before Lynch.
Kubrick, before he shot The Shining, had a private showing with the crew of Eraserhead.
Yeah,
and he says, and this is something that some people are only learning now, and he said, this is what we're looking for. Let this movie influence you. And that blew my mind.
I remember David Lynch saying, a friend of mine came and said he was up at Stanley Kubrick's house and he wanted him to see his favorite movie, and it was Eraserhead. And when I heard that, I was like, wow.
I had dinner with him many, many years ago, back in the 80s, when he first moved to Virginia. And I had worked under, I was study. I studied under the artist that worked on Dune. And so I got invited as a +1 for dinner. And nice. He was like the nicest guy I ever met, but I was not allowed to talk about Dune at the dinner because it was like bad blood or some shit.
He was very disappointed in his experience on Dune, and he recently said he's not interested in seeing the new one. I really enjoy his Dune, even though he says it's not his Dune. I like the book, but I actually enjoy the movie a little more. I don't mind that it's not like the book.
I love the film.
I'm kind of with him on not being in trouble. I got
now scream.
I'm kind of interested not very interested in the new Dune. It looks like it's quality. I'm sure it's great, but it just kind of looks like everything else. It's a little more monotone. The designs all look like designs I've seen before.
This is a complaint I have with Villeneuve, is that Blade Runner 2049 is a better written story. It is. And but it lacks the texture that Ridley created in the first film. It's just like, it's a more sterile atmosphere. It's cleaner. The effects are cleaner. Everything's clean in it. Yeah, it's better written, but really it didn't offer anything visually more than what the first film did. And the first film is, according to BFI and the AFI, the single most influential film in cinema history.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's like I with the Quantum Terror, I wanted to try all these things out, and I wanted to weave them together in a way that was uniquely mine, not just
right.
I didn't want to make a movie where you're like, hey, you remember this movie? Hey, you recognize this callback? Nothing like that. More of just kind of trying out all the techniques.
Yeah, it ceases being an homage if it's really noticeable.
Yeah, it's not an homage to any one film. It's a simple story structure.
I hear all this clicking.
That's the dog's toenails that I need to cut.
You need to watch that video I posted today of that girl. She puts cellophane on her head, and then paints peanut butter on her forehead. And you're like, what the hell is she doing? And then you see her kneeling down and she's clipping her dog's toenails and they're licking her forehead. They don't give a shit what she's doing with the clippers. All they care about is that peanut butter. I'm like, that's genius.
I gotta throw these dogs out. They're going, go on, out you guys. Out. Yeah, I may have to try that.
It's genius. Go check the video out. It's on my Facebook page. We've lost Brittney again.
You said saran wrap on the head and then peanut butter, and I was like, is everything all right at home?
I watch it.
Yeah, my internet connection.
Oh yeah.
It's trash.
That's okay. We know you'll come back each time.
I knew it was gonna happen. It's
the law of inevitability. Yep.
But all this stuff is a lot of fun to me, though. You know, the crew. The funny thing is here in Texas, films get made, but a lot of indie films are people. You know, they haven't had any Hollywood experience, so casting was very difficult. It took me a long time to find the right actors, and they came on weekends because they had day jobs and they really worked their butts off. Anthony Gutierrez, who's the director of photography of Circus of the Dead and a movie with Shawn Michaels, the wrestler Shawn Michaels, called 90 Feet from Home. He came and did great cinematography. Miniatures, all this stuff. I drew storyboards. I did everything as professionally as I could, and it was really wild for a lot of them. It was Kristen Coachella was her first feature film as a lead, and it's like they're showing up, and I'm going through storyboards, showing them what it's going to look like, showing them creatures and stuff, and a lot of it was very new to them, but at the same time, they really enjoyed how much information, how much I gave them. I remember one time showing them the storyboards, and I'm like, are these storyboards okay? Like, in comparison to others that you've had? They're like, we never get storyboards. So it was like a new experience, and they were very trusting, and everyone had a really good time. And we did things like, there's a scene that I borrowed the effect from John Carpenter and Dan O'Bannon's Dark Star, where they're going down Keith knows what I'm talking about. It's an elevator shaft.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking the elevator shaft scene. Okay.
And they just did it by laying the elevator shaft flat and pretending that they're trying to, that Dan O'Bannon's trying to hang on and stuff. And so it's
using the same technique they used on Batman 66.
Yeah, exactly. And I built a tunnel that I wanted them to climb down, and the thing's made out of styrofoam sheets, so they have to be very careful. And they, so they're like laying on the ground pretending to hang on, and they're looking at me like, "Is this gonna work?"
It always works.
And then we would, since the tunnel was styrofoam, we could stand it up and then have them standing, acting like they were hanging on if we wanted something to drop past them or something for individual shots. And the reason I made everything out of styrofoam too was because I didn't have enough money to build wood sets, and I didn't want to build anything that could fall on an actor and get me sued on a tiny micro budget little production. But I just remember in the script they have to let go and fall down the tunnel, because there's no way to actually have them fall down the tunnel. So what I did was I had the actresses stand in this tunnel, jump up, and then squat down. So they had to do these jump squats. And so I had the camera, and I kept just following them up and down with these jump squats a bunch of times. They're like, what is this supposed to be? I'm like, it's you falling. And they're like, yeah, but we're just doing jump squats. But I cut the part where they jumped, and I cut the part where they, at the end where they squat down just enough that I took each cut of them doing a jump squat and strung them all together. And I had it was 3 walls and then slats, because the slats that they're holding onto. So as they're jump squatting, the slats are flying in front of the camera. So I just cut it together. So bunch of shots. It's. Can you hear me okay? Over this?
Yeah.
So all these shots together look like they're just falling and falling and falling. So it's like one of those little editing tricks. And when they saw that, they're like, whoa, I had no idea that that's what it would look like. That looks so cool. But when they're doing it, you really have to just get them to trust you, because you're a guy with barely any money, you know, paying them the bare minimum, filming in the garage. You know, we'd have to stop for audio because some kid would be walking by bouncing a basketball or something. You know, it's just like ridiculous.
Oh, the dogs are barking.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, so it really is a matter of you know, trusting me. And you know, it's since then it's come together. But all the stuff you saw in that trailer was all just in and around my house, miniatures, things built out of, like I said, packing tape, bubble wrap. Bubble wrap makes for great tentacles if you roll it with latex, by the way. So it's just the way I make films, and I'm talking to other actors right now about, you know, doing things for points, you know, and producer credit, and you know, that's not always the way.
Hey, it works. I did that with
we have to do stuff like that too.
Yeah. But we're not limited. See, here's the advantage that we have as independent producers at the moment, where Hollywood is going to have a lot of trouble, is we're not working with union people. We don't have to answer to unions. We're doing things very slapdash that work. But if you were to bring it to a Hollywood set, they would laugh at you and tell you to get out of here.
Yeah.
You know?
100%.
Yeah, but that's also their biggest limitation. That's the thing that's going to be hard. They're going to have to figure out ways to overcome it, because, you know, it's just like, what is it? Like Kickstarter. Kickstarter got a union, and now they're like having to lay people off. Unions are, you know, I understand the necessity for them in the past, but we have to evolve past that mentality, because unions are, you know, from a day where movies were about people getting rich with, you know, if they had a hit movie. We're not getting rich on this. We're making a living, but we love making movies. We can make a living. It's not about getting rich. It's just about being, you know, good business people, which is what Roger Corman was. I mean, I know Roger Corman's probably doing really well, but the title of his book was how I got 100 movies made and never lost a dime, or something like that. That's the name of his book. And
well, it's something we talk about on the show too, is, you know, these films that are trying to compete out there that are shooting for over $45 million is ridiculous. You know, the risk is too high. Why are you doing that?
Or you get people who are independent filmmakers who are trying to make a Hollywood level film on no budget, and it looks wrong. It looks cheap. You're like, I might as well go make a Hollywood film. So that's the other thing Hollywood's going to have to learn how to do is
yeah, because like, what's his name? Just made a film for what is his name? Blumhouse made the Invisible Man. He made it for $7 million.
Yeah, that's, you know, and I also think
we just lost Keith.
No, Keith.
That's weird. I've never lost Keith before.
I know how it feels.
Well, we're used to losing you because your connectivity. She has to sit right next to the router.
Pretty much.
Well, let me tell you what
keep going. He'll come back eventually.
What I foresee for films, I think that what we're on the cusp of is a new way of filmmaking for video on demand, not for movies. But, you know, I've learned a lot by watching the people who crowdfund their comics. And I've realized that someone who crowdfunds their own comics and is successful at it, whether it be like Ethan Van Sciver, Richard Meyer, what's the guy that does Lady Death? I forget his name.
Oh, I forget.
But all these people, whenever they do a Kickstarter, they always do well, because what their name is, what they do, their connection to the fans, that's the umbrella. So whatever they produce under that umbrella of their brand, the audience always comes for it because they know what they're going to get. I think that Netflix is kind of an early adopter on this with Black Mirror, where Black Mirror is kind of this like dystopian sci-fi, but it's different stories every time, different characters, different plots, different worlds, but it's all under the umbrella of Black Mirror. So people will always come back to watch it. They don't have to sell you on every single idea.
Yeah, Amazon just tried that with The Loop.
Yeah, but The Loop is like 15 minutes worth of content stretched out over an hour, and
it's really weird the way they do it too. And I wasn't sure I bought it because characters keep revolving into the story from the other stories.
And there's nothing wrong with that, because like Robert Rodriguez and Frank Miller did that with Sin City.
And Sin City is beautiful.
Yeah, and it worked. What I think is The Loop makes a huge mistake, which is they are trying to create stories that fit around an old way of thinking about television and film. Television and film had to be a certain amount of time. Television had to be written with, commercial breaks in mind and fitting in a certain time slot. Films, how many times a day can we show this film on a single screen? Now, I think that what we're going to be seeing, and what my business plan is going to be for filmmaking, is creating individual umbrellas. One is called, there's the kind of off-the-wall bonkers science fiction. Keith is back. Hey, Keith. That umbrella is called Girl in the Window. So it's like I said, the bonkers off-the-wall science fiction. Doug Mayfield, the producer, and I are another one called Dream Umbrella, which is more kind of drama science fiction. And there will be others. There will be other umbrellas. But the idea is essentially, if you see that umbrella, you know what you're going to get. We don't have, and if we want to produce a movie under it, like a 90-minute movie, we can. Or if we want to do a 15-minute short, we can. It's all under the same umbrella, and the audience knows what they're going to get. So we don't have to convince them to come check out our new movie. It can be a movie, or it can be like 3 episodes of a mini series. It can be animation, it can be whatever, but they always know what they're going to get. And I think you're going to see more umbrellas like that. Just like I said, the crowdfunders, if the guy that does Lady Death starts a new Kickstarter campaign, he doesn't have to sell you on the whole idea again. He just knows, what his style is, what to expect. Some are
Ryan Polito.
Thank you. Polito. Ryan Polito.
Polito. Sorry, Polito. Yeah.
So, I think we're going to see...
I knew Keith would know.
That's what I'm going to be focusing on a bit more. I'm not saying every movie I produce is going to be under this, and the Quantum Terror will be under its own thing, but I'm going to think more about that. And also, I'm going to stop... I think we got to stop limiting ourselves to timelines. My favorite... I'm not actually a big fan of Black Mirror, but my favorite episode of Black Mirror is the Star Trek homage one.
I hated it.
It was a little movie though. It wasn't quite movie length. It was the length it needed to be. Or another one, Love, Death plus Robots.
I love that one. That's a great show.
Some of them I liked, some of them I didn't. Some of them just look like, game engine stuff, while others were real stylized. But I like the idea of that. You know what you're going to get. And that, like I said, you don't have to sell them on idea after idea. And you also don't have to commit to a series of, same cast, same world. You can bring them out whenever you want. And people can look at the time like, oh, this one's 15 minutes. I got 15 minutes. Or they're sitting down like, I want to watch a movie tonight, or I want to invest in something that's like, 3 or 4 episodes long. And then if people really love those particular characters, you can bring them back for another story. But in the meantime, you can present other stuff. So I think that we're going to see a true evolution in what video on demand is for viewers. Because there are all sorts of different viewers. They want different kinds of content. Some of them just want little bites. Some of them want to binge watch. Some of them just want a movie. But there's no reason why we have to hold to that old school formatting. Like I said, that loop is just a fundamentally bad idea to take these ideas that are like good for 15 minutes and stretch them out over an hour, because what you're doing is you're saying, what are you promising your audience? Are you promising them an interesting?
Well, I found the
concept?
same problem with that other show. Is it on Netflix? No, it's shit. Hulu it's FX and Hulu, where it's called Devs. DEVS. And I watched the first episode, and I got so fucking bored that I just skipped all the way to the final episode.
Oh man!
And I was like,
that much effort if I was bored.
I just want to know where were you going with this? And I got to the end, and I'm like, you had to make this that long to get to that freaking idea. And it's like, again, people raving about Devs, and I'm like, it's okay. It was stretched out in a way it shouldn't have been. That should have been just a movie.
I think people will support an idea for a certain amount of time if they like the concept and they want it to do well, and they'll even defend stuff if it's not as good as it was, like trying to will it to be better than it was, because no one likes to see a good idea lost on a poor execution. And again, I think The Mandalorian is what, 40 minutes long, 45 minutes. This is about as long as it needs to be per
30.
episode.
It's the average episode is 30 to 32 minutes. And then towards the end, they had longer episodes. Every episode needs to be regular TV hour long, which is 45 minutes plus commercials.
Yeah, and I think that you even in The Mandalorian, you saw some things that were like padding it out, like the whole.
Well, they also did something that I dislike, which is rushing things and relationships in particular. They rush relationships, whereas they should have taken the time to foster that a little bit better.
Yeah, it's. I think it's a good show. We'll see what happens with it. I like adventure shows where sometimes it's not about. Sometimes people kind of stop the action for a relationship, where you can really just see relationships kind of evolve over time.
And that's the wonderful thing about sci-fi, is that if there's traveling involved, that's where you build your relationships. It's just like a Western.
I think in the future, I think bringing back old ideas like what NBC had in the 70s with the NBC Mystery Wheel.
Rock Hudson show.
But it was really Columbo. Just a way to have all these Glenn A. Larson ideas, but instead of paying for one whole long series, you had 4 or 5 different ideas where each week you would choose between McMillan and Wife, Columbo, Banachek, and whatever else they had.
Exactly.
I love Banachek.
And I'm definitely not talking about anything new. We had, like, you could harken back to the Twilight Zone or Ray Bradbury Theater or Night Gallery, Outer Limits. All of these things, the same thing. You knew what you were gonna get. You just didn't know what particular thing it was, but you knew the themes and the tone, and
right.
People were attracted to that. You can get detective, you can get science fiction. I would love to see. I'm a big fan of Genndy Tartakovsky and Samurai Jack, and there's a Symbionic Titan,
right?
Which only got one season.
You know what? I liked his version of Clone Wars.
Oh, it was great too. Yeah, and
I liked his version of Clone Wars. Yeah.
I just heard that a new episode of Primal came out as well, but he is such a great visual storyteller, and he gives you so much richness of character, but the action never stops. Mm-hmm. It's not like, here's some action and now we're going to have some like soap opera conflict or something like that, or some, drama or misunderstanding.
What you were describing before, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was going to
No,
say what
go
you were
for it, go for it.
describing before. In my thoughts, I also just thought of something else. You're describing something a little closer to what MTV had with liquid television. It's just not all animation.
Yeah, liquid
You know?
television was the only problem I had with liquid television was that it was they never gave any of their properties enough time to grow. You know, it was always kind of like you get repeat things like Dog Boy, you know, or Eon Flux, but it was always just essentially for a gag, you know. You never got to really grow and understand any of these characters.
Yeah, scheduling had something to do with it too. I didn't like the way they scheduled the shows.
Yeah, you know, and
well, my favorite segment, ironically, was the really short Dear Mom sketch. Dear Mom, you know.
Well,
It was just
they were clever and funny, and they didn't require anything beyond what they were. They were nice little digestible bites.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's like, I remember Dog Boy I would always get really irritated with, and I know other people that like Dog Boy, and it was like, that's a cute idea, but it's really kind of a one-trick pony. So, and I like the idea of little anthology. Like I said, Love, Death, Robots does that. Oh, you guys want to be fed. That's why you're all over me.
It's dinner time.
And Love, Death, Robots did that to varying degrees. My favorite episode of Love, Death, Robots was probably the one where they were the kind of like the farmers.
That was a really good story.
Yeah, the ranchers with the mechs fighting off the monsters was really great because you got.
And then you find out at the end that they're not even where you thought they were.
Exactly. Yeah. And then there was another one that I really liked, which was the pilot of the kind of, they were like drop ships from Aliens, essentially what it was. But the story of the pilot that was like everyone thought she had the unluckiest ship, but she ended up.
Oh yeah, that was really good too. Yeah.
You know, those were some good character development.
Oddly, one of my favorites too is the one with the robots walking around looking at Earth after humans.
That was my least favorite one. See, this is why
I
we're
thought
not
it was
on the
funny.
Same page. They went with the gag at the end, though. I'm going to spoil it. That you're like, oh, cats took over because they had opposable thumbs. That's like the oldest like gag in the world. It's like someone's like, I love that joke. I'm going to write a whole thing around it.
That was actually the part I don't care about. My favorite part is just the way they talk to each other. I loved the way these robots talk to one another, and it was hilarious to me. The cat thing was not that great a payoff.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. It was like.
Well, what did you think of Ice Age? That particular episode called Ice Age.
Was that the one where they had the fridge that had a whole?
Oh, the final episode, yeah.
I got that one in the middle. I think they play it in different order depending on who you are.
It was the last one for me.
It was that one was all right. It was kind of it was fun. It kind of reminded me of something that might be like an MTV Liquid Television skit. You know, there's another one that I thought was really endearing that I forget about. But there were some that like just annoyed me that were kind of like other people absolutely loved them, but you know, they just kind of, some of them were written, you could tell, from like a place of bitterness. Like they just like had some grievance that they wanted to air, and they decided to turn it into a science fiction story. And I was like, you know. So it's hit or miss, but that's better than my record. Like David Fincher, I'm not a fan of. He's one of those people. He's a great director. He knows what he's doing, but something about him just never captures me. So you know, I think he did pretty good with that one. I like that it's very adult, very raw. Doesn't you know, pull any punches that way. Definitely don't want to watch it with kids in the room. You know, and I want to create some sci-fi like that as well. I think the grown-ups deserve something every once in a while. Let's see. Again, the other thing, Hollywood's always trying to make it family friendly. And there are some things, as one character, we talked about the young ones earlier. So
Right.
I have a character who's a British alien. He's actually not British because he's an alien, but he learned how to speak English by watching the BBC transmissions from the 80s. I have to spend some time getting into that character because a British accent, I used to have a British accent, and it's like you can slip in and out of it. But that's family friendly because it's like all the things kids would like. He's had ridiculous adventures with robots and fart jokes and monsters and comedy, and that's something that I'd want to like enjoy with the kids. But sometimes there's a script. The original concept of Girl in the Window came from a sci-fi shoot 'em up called Girl in the Window that I wrote, which is essentially like a Robert Rodriguez film with purple alien babes that can't keep their clothes on, monsters being blown away by heavy duty laser firearms, like just crazy villains and all sorts of stuff happening. And it came from, it's all, what it's all born out of. It's like I said, movies like Robinson Crusoe on Mars, Forbidden Planet, Green Slime, and then after seeing those movies, after years of hearing about it and imagining what it was like but never seeing it, I finally saw Barbarella. And I'm thinking Barbarella is the ultimate science fiction movie that like everything I wanted to see in like a sexy science fiction movie, and I was so disappointed in it. It was like, so essentially like these ideas are me going like, no. We're going to do Barbarella right. We're going to do it the way that I want to see it, which is essentially like Star Wars meets Robert Rodriguez.
That sounds amazing.
Thank you. And it's all going to be done in my garage.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait. Now, Brittney, you have seen Barbarella, haven't you?
Yes, that's why I was saying Star Wars meets Robert Rodriguez sounds fantastic.
Thanks. Well,
that sounds great.
And
I would be sold. Like if somebody was like, "Hey, you should help with this project." It's Star Wars meets Robert Rodriguez. It's like that's things that you can sell people on to like want to help with a project.
It's very simple stuff, and it's like I said, I want to make it sexy and I want to make it outrageous, and things that, like I said, it's fun, but you definitely don't want to watch it with your kids. We actually did shoot Girl in the Window a long time ago, and it didn't work out mainly because I got this. Without naming any actors' names or anything like that, was like we got a very pretty actress who was willing to disrobe on camera and be colored purple, and we shot it in my apartment, like a 1-bedroom apartment, and with a little like DV camera and like a green screen tacked to the ceiling hanging down, and it would have been great except I messed up the contracts. And so I wanted to get everybody to re-sign, but I couldn't get people to re-sign because they were either away. And then the lead actress, she had a successful career doing something else where suddenly she didn't want to be seen in that. And so she refused to sign. And I had put up some trailers and stuff, and she'd actually she said her management did it, but I don't know. She actually put copyright strikes against my stuff. And I was like, this is my stuff. So we had a conversation, and I didn't want to get into it with her, and I was happy too that she was having a successful career. It's like, okay, we'll scrap this one, but I've still got the script. I want to do it again, and I want to do a bunch of other stuff like that under the Girl in the Window thing. My producer Doug Mayfield and we came up with I can't talk about it, but it is so cool. It's
okay.
It's again the same. It's like. All I'll say is this. Imagine Frank Frazetta's Princess of Mars artwork come to life in the way that Samurai Jack comes to life.
Oh!
So that's one of the things we're working on at the moment. And that's all
I can't say anything else.
Oh.
I was just watching Fire and Ice last night going, yeah, we got this. So, and so it's a really exciting time to be a filmmaker. I'm still so sorry that the Quantum Terror is taking so long to get out. I'm working right now with my producer. We're coming up with ways. Our Indiegogo supporters who have been waiting so patiently. I was watching Brian Polito's an unboxing of Brian Polito's stuff, and he comes with all these stickers and magnets and all this cool stuff. And I was like going, okay, I got to figure out a way to do this for my contributors who waited so long, so they get extra stuff, extra cool stuff that they weren't expecting as a thank you. But I want to get that out there because there are going to be other crowdfunding campaigns. There's going to be other projects. I've got a Patreon where I, give early previews of stuff and exclusive content, especially when I interview people, because I interview special effects artists and filmmakers on my YouTube channel as well. And, that's the Patreon I'm hoping gets bigger so I don't have to keep doing crowdfunding campaigns, because I can do so much of this stuff on the cheap. It's just a lot of what Alec Gillis would call sweat equity. What you don't have money for, you make up for in your hard work. Well, I live and breathe this stuff. And, if I could do it, if I can get just enough money in where I don't have to go do my delivery driving. I'm an essential worker at the moment, but I haven't been able to do that because my daughter has had pneumonia and my wife might be coming down with it. So I don't want to bring her.
So are both of these two. They're essential workers.
Yeah. So, so I haven't been able to do that. But if I can get the Patreon or either, other stuff going, and I'm doing work for the Brimstone Saint is a supernatural Western for a director named Chris Young. I did a Bill Oberst.
Like the name.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I was thinking.
It's an awesome name, isn't it? It's really cool too. It's going to be good. It's a good independent film. And then Bill Oberst Jr.
Well, let me at least just say in advance, if you end up making T-shirts of that, I want one of them.
Okay. Well, that's up to Chris Young. But I'm going to highly recommend Chris Young because Chris Young has a YouTube channel for Brimstone Saint, and he has creepypasta stories on there that are really good. He's like, check out my YouTube channel. It's like, yeah, I'll check it out. It's like I ended up binging all the creepypastas that he put on there because he hired people to write them and produce them. They got actors to read. Oh, so good. And Bill Oberst Jr. did the Ray Bradbury one-man show that is officially what do you call it? Not blessed or sanctioned, but it's officially licensed through Ray Bradbury's estate. And so I did rear projection animated backdrops for him. Things like Martian Chronicles, The Sound of Thunder.
I saw that's some of the stuff you put up on YouTube.
Yeah, it's on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, I saw that. It was beautiful.
So as long as I can keep making enough money where my wife and I can pay the rent and the bills, I'll just keep doing stuff from my garage. Yeah, right. But this is, I get a lot of joy from it, and I do want to make things that are entertaining for people and give it, like I said, the stuff I make is like, I always say to my wife, these are all movies that I would just want to sit and watch all the time. It's just they haven't been made. And I feel that there's a lot of fans out there that feel the same way. They surf through VOD looking for stuff that is like the next thing that they want to be a fan of, but it doesn't quite hit the mark. It's either something that's a good idea, it's too stretched out, or not executed very well. And I believe next to a good script, execution is key. I think there's a lot of people who get a good script, but then kind of shirk the execution. That's why I love people like Genndy Tartakovsky, who are all about presentation.
Yeah, and he's got such an interesting name.
But
I think we'll go ahead and wrap up this episode here. So we're almost hitting the 2-hour mark, and I would like to continue talking to you after the credits.
Absolutely.
And,
well, I want to say thank you for having me on the show. It's a real privilege.
One, you're a friend of mine. Two, I find you fascinating.
You're impressive.
Oh, thank you so much, guys.
She's always sucking up the people.
Well, I feel rude because my internet connection keeps going in and out. So it's like I was trying not to say too much because I was afraid I was like halfway through this sentence. I'm thinking in my head, it's my internet. It's gonna go.
Well, you guys are a real pleasure, and I really appreciate the opportunity for you letting me come on and share my excitement. Thank you.
No, we're very excited to do it and look forward to doing it again with you as you progress. I'd like to do one maybe in a couple weeks after. I mean, do you know when the drawing is? I'm actually going to try to do something, and we should talk after the show, the three of us. Fuck you, Chris. About.
I thought you were going to say me. I was just expecting my name to come out. I was like,
no.
oh, okay.
Someone's got low self-esteem. No, I was thinking we should maybe do something too for this contest. Compete with Christopher here.
Yeah.
And
I want to be able to say that I beat out as many people as possible when I won.
I would actually like to see all three of us do our own little short films, 2 minutes long. That's the rule. Here, I'll pull it up again.
2 minutes or under.
Yeah.
And
where's
you
it at?
enter by anybody that wants to enter.
Here it is.
You enter by there's a hashtag you have to use.
You have to tag Roger Corman.
And you have to Corman challenge, and you have to tag Roger Corman.
Yep, right there.
So I've been sending it to all of my friends, both big professionals and, people who have never done anything before. But I am in this one to win it. I'm if it all comes
I hope you do win
my
it.
Head,
but I would like to enter it just for shits and giggles.
Well,
I like that you're still like sending it to everybody. You're like, I'm in it to win it, but I want everybody involved, so my victory is sweeter.
Yes.
Well, more than
I won't rub it in your face much.
Right. To me, I'll tell you a quick thing before we get off the air. A certificate from Roger Corman to me, because Roger Corman's one of my heroes as far as,
Same here, man.
A filmmaking businessman, and has made some great. I love his 80s era science fiction and barbarian movies personally, and that's where I'm coming from with stuff that I make. But a certificate from him would be better to me than an Oscar. And we'll wrap this up with one last quick little story. I'm still salty that I didn't win a contest that he had, which is he had a tagline contest for his movie Sharktopus versus Terracuda. The prize was your tagline gets used in the poster, and you get a signed poster from Roger Corman. The winner was Sharktopus versus Terracuda, a love story. I'm convinced that the only reason I didn't win is because he must have missed my entry, which was Sharktopus versus Terracuda. The P may be silent. Yeah, you gotta let me say it. Okay. The P may be silent, but they're both deadly.
I'm trying to find it right now because I think
winner.
it was.
Come on, man, that's a winner.
Oh, it's great.
So.
Here it is. I think it was Major Dundee. Major Dundee was the film Roger Corman was fired off of because he was saving the studio money by not overspending. And this is just a sign of studios at that time was, it's not a good film unless you throw money at it. He was I was just going to say equipment. He was refusing equipment that they didn't need. And he was bringing everything under budget, and Sam Peckinpah was brought in to shoot the film because they didn't like that. They felt he was somehow shortchanging the making of the film, and it's like, no, it's going to still be a damn good film, but oh well.
Well, a quick
He's
story
a very
about
smart guy.
Alec Gillis. When I interviewed him, and he was my boss for a while, he told me a story about Roger Corman and James Cameron. This is something he saw firsthand. He was working on, I think it was Galaxy of. It was either Galaxy of. No, I think it was Battle Beyond the Stars.
Okay.
But it was one of those science fiction.
I enjoyed both of them.
Yeah, me too. And Roger Corman showed up because it was taking too long to get the shots done. And James Cameron was working on the sets, and Roger Corman came in and he looked at the sets. He's like, "These sets are done. Roll them out. Let's shoot." And James Cameron said, "Roger, I think they need a little more. They're not quite done yet." And Roger Corman turned to him and said, "Then you'll be fired."
They're They're done.
He says, that's the only time in my life I've ever seen James Cameron just flustered and speechless. He said watching James Cameron run after Roger Corman trying to go like convince him, but no, they got rolled out. And he said, I had to tell actors, like, don't lean on this. The paint is still wet. That's how fresh the sets were and how efficient Roger Corman was, because he knew there was a balance between his budget and the quality and yes, you could spend more time and money getting the best quality, but that's no guarantee you're going to have a hit. And if you don't have a hit, that's time where you're losing money. So Roger Corman knew the perfect balance, and I believe in that philosophy myself.
Yeah, and it's the thing that's really fascinating is like so many people that are in the industry that started with him, that were inspired by him and worked for him. And one of my personal favorites is Joe Dante. And Dante did what I consider to be the greatest homage to Roger Corman ever, and had Roger Corman do it. Is the phone booth scene at the beginning of The Howling.
Yes.
Where he goes into the phone booth after the main character walks out, and then he checks to see if there's any coins in the return slot down below.
Some would say that that's Dante's peak.
Dead humor. You are so punny.
That's
You're
what I
so
get for
good
hanging out
at
with Alec
it.
Gillis. He's the
You're
worst.
so good at it.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
let's wrap it up then.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being with us, buddy. I appreciate it, Chris. You're an awesome dude.
Oh, thanks.
Brittney, thanks for popping in and out throughout the episode. And Keith, thanks for popping in and out there at least once. And with that, get off our lawn. Get out of here.
You guys are awesome too.
Hey guys, thanks for watching Pop Culture Minefield. If you've enjoyed the show, please remember to like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell icon. Remember, you can find us at Pop Culture Minefield on both Facebook and Instagram. Thank you again.